All right, so this is the second part. We have, for the baby album, we have our hardcover album, and we put our hinges on the inside, and our hinges have score tape on both sides of each of these hinges. So now we're ready to make the pages. I've done all my cutting ahead of time, but I'll tell you my measurements on the pages. There's 5 pages that go in here, and the base pages I did all the same. This measures 7.25 by 11, and let me just flip it around. So 7.25 by 11 inches, and I scored it at a 1/2 inch here, and I scored at 5.75 inches here. And then what we're going to do is fold. Just get my bone folder. I'm going to fold this, and then we're going to fold this side. And then ultimately this is going to go in here, but obviously we have to seal up the bottom. We're making these top loading pages, so the top will be open, but we need something to seal the bottom. So what I've done is I've taken little like bottom hinge pieces that measure 5 1/8, and the reason I did that is this measures 5.25, and I didn't want it to be too tight of a fit, so I made this piece just a little bit shorter. So, and we probably will trim it down a little bit more, but this is 5 1/8 by 1 inch, and I scored it at a 1/2 inch so it folds in half like this, and I made 5 of those. All right, so let's do one page first, and I'm actually going to put them all together so you can see. So we're going to take score tape. I would use either the 1/4 inch, or I have 3/8 of an inch. And again, this isn't actually Score Tape brand. This is a knockoff, but it's fine. But this is the 3/8 of an inch. And I'm going to put my glasses on so I can actually, see what I'm doing. All right. So we're going to put next to the fold is really where you want it to go. Pretty close to that fold. And you don't want to go over the fold. And I'm putting it on both sections on the same side. Okay, I'm back. I wanted this bone folder. I like using this one when I burnish the edges. All right, so the score tape is on the outside edges. So what we're gonna do, and I like to, I'm right-handed. It doesn't really matter which way you do it, but I'm gonna make these all uniform. I'm going to put my little 1/2 inch piece to my right. You could do it opposite. You could do them all the same, all different. It doesn't matter. This is going to glue down at the bottom here so that this edge lines up with the bottom of this. Don't have this folded in though. You want this folded out so it's out of the way. All right, so first I'm going to just take the one section off, and you don't want to go right next to the fold lines. You don't want to be too close because then it might not open and close properly. So you probably can't see this too well, but there's a little tiny bit between this score line and where this piece starts. Same thing over here. Just a little bit of give. Now I'm going to fold this piece in, lay this piece down, take the backing off, and I like to hold it down and start folding it on. And I kind of do across the surface of the whole thing so that it's flat. I wouldn't want there to be like a bubble here. And if you do that, you're going to know what I mean. But I'm going to show you a couple more times. So we're going to burnish this, and we're going to set that aside. By the way, I don't think I told you, when I took my 7.25 by 11 inches and I scored it at a 1/2 inch and 5 3/4, I also trimmed just these little corners off of here. Okay, that just makes it so that they tuck in and the edges don't stick out. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is fold the 1/4 inch part. And I know I'm weird. I like to use two different bone folders. Depends on what I'm doing. I like my regular bone folder for this one. And I like the other one, the Teflon one. It's got a different angle on it. I like to use that when I'm burnishing the score tape. All right, so let's just do this part for all of our pages. So again, we need 5. So there's 2 there. I'm gonna fold this. I'm gonna fold this. I like to line it up as I go. Sometimes my score line is off a little bit. So when I line it up over here, I can kind of straighten it out if I need to. And I see I got a little piece sticking up there. All right. I'm going to line all of these up so that this piece is on the right. And again, you could do it where it's on the left. It doesn't really truly matter, but I like to make them all the same. So I start there, and we're going to stack them. I'm going to put the score tape on the remaining 4 bottom pieces. Again, this measures 5 1/8 by 1 inch, and I scored it down the length of it at 1/2 inch. So we're going to put this score tape on both sides, or both parts, I guess you want to call it. Oopsie. Somebody's got a motorcycle driving outside. I don't know if you could hear that, but today was the first really, well, maybe the second nice day, and that we've had all winter. And I think it was just about 70 degrees out today, so lots of people outside walking and riding their bikes, and unfortunately all the motorcycles are starting to come out. I already saw people wearing shorts. I'm like, that's pushing it a little bit. It is still winter after all. All right, so I've got all of these on. Now I'm going to take, this is the Teflon one that has that different type of edge. You could do it with this one, that's fine, but I just prefer using this. So we're going to burnish this so that the score tape sticks real good. Number one, it makes it stick better, but also it makes it easier to take the backing off. So if you use score tape, don't skip this step. All right, let's fold them. All right, now we're ready to put these on the pages. All right, so I'm going to open this up so that the hinge is on my right. I'm going to take off a piece of the backing, and I'm going to line this up with the bottom edge, and I'm going to fold this in and take the backing off. If you need to, you can cut these corners a little bit here and here, but since I made them a little bit shorter than the page, I don't think I really need to, but if it's not quite fitting just right for you, feel free to do that. Okay, let's do another one. If you have any questions about this, or if you're not one of my friends and customers making this album and you are just trying to make an album on your own and maybe you're unfamiliar with it, or you're not that experienced, you know, always feel free to reach out to me. You can comment below, and I can get back to you with some help if you would like. I know when I'm learning to make things, I like to have the videos. YouTube has been wonderful for my crafting expertise, so to speak. When I first started doing this and stamping, I had no idea what I was doing, and reading about it and reading even step-by-step directions are only just so-so. Having a visual of it, I think, is very helpful. So if you are stuck on anything, please reach out to me. I don't mind helping at all. I enjoy that. All right, so this is our last base page. And again, I put that on, I'm folding this in, and then gluing this down. And I like to kind of hold it here and then slide it over so that it lays flat. Okay, so now we have our base pages. So these are going to go on here, and it's going to have an opening on the top. I don't always put a tab here. Sometimes I just would have made this straight across, and it attaches to the hinges, but then you're losing where that attaches, you're losing that 1/2 inch. By adding this extra piece here, that makes it so that when I'm inserting something in here, I have that whole width. So it's just a personal preference. Okay, so we could do this a couple of different ways. I do have some add-on components to the base pages that I have in my album that I did. Sometimes I just leave it plain like this. For my people that are trying to replicate my album, I find that it's easier to put your pages all in, put the little flippy things on, and then decorate it, because then you are sure you're doing it correctly. If you're real snazzy, it's actually easier, technically speaking, to work on this flat piece and put your design paper on after you have all your flaps and stuff, after you have it completely decorated, then put it in your album. The reason I don't always recommend that is because sometimes you might put it on, quote, the wrong side, and then it won't look like my sample. So that's up to you if you think you could do it. Sometimes I'll decorate it and then I'll flip it, and then I'll set it aside, and then I'll make sure, okay, this goes here, so I'll decorate this side because that would be a match here, and then this side, and just kind of pile them up. But again, sometimes that gets a little bit confusing. So I'm going to do this for the purposes of this demonstration. I'm going to put all these in first, and then we're going to put the little parts that flip out and have pockets and everything separate, and then we'll decorate it. All right, so I'm just going to set this on here, and I get to kind of like squeeze it, turn it, and then after I think it's on right is when I really go in with the bone folder. Go like that. Okay, I like to push these out of the way, and we'll do the next one. Sometimes you have to just fold this inside better. It helps if you have a really good crease on that edge that has this little tab. That way it doesn't go where it's not supposed to. Uh-oh. It shifted and it's sticking where it's not supposed to. Alright, I think that's better. Uh-oh, I got a bubble in there, see that? Have no fear, we can fix that. Again, if you are not familiar with my best friend Undo, you will definitely want to get some of this stuff. All right, so sometimes it's good to make mistakes when you're doing your videos, because then everybody else can see that there's a way to fix it. So I just lifted that off. I'm gonna let it dry just a little bit. And then we're gonna, this won't stick too good until it dries, but I'm gonna come back to that. That's just to kind of push it down. We're gonna come back to that though. If I didn't mention, I don't know if you've noticed, rather than trying to put the pages on while the album is going, you know, top to bottom, I do like to turn it so that my hinges are going straight across. I just find it easier to work with that way. You may prefer to have it going up and down. That's up to you. I'm just going to give this a good crease. So hopefully we don't do that again. I always like to push it down, make sure that it's all the way inside there. Okay, first I'm gonna come back to this one and just, now that that's dry, the undo dries pretty quickly. So, although I will have to say, there are some of the formulas out there that don't dry so fast. I always get the one that has the yellow with the red. There's one that has like, I think it's like a green background, and I'm not sure what's different on it, but my goodness, it takes way too long to dry, and I'm very impatient, so I don't like to wait. All right, so we're gonna put this in. And the last one. I feel a little bit of sticky stuff there, which means I didn't get it down quite as close to the chipboard as it should. So I'm actually gonna pull that off. You could take a little bit of baby powder on that, but I'm gonna actually try to fix it. And I'm gonna take the other side off as well. Maybe. Sometimes it's tricky to, because I've got layers of everything. There we go. You don't want to pull it, just let it go. It'll start to pull up as it's wet. Sometimes you just have to add more undo. All right, so let's just let that dry for a minute. And I'm going to turn it back around this way. All right, let's try that again. Yes, that's better. All right, I'm going to go back over that again in a little bit after it has an opportunity to dry more. Okay, so those are the base pages. So now they've got an opening in the top that we're going to put these tags in, but the base pages are done. So now we have to add our flaps. All right, I'm going to come back to this piece. I'm just going to work on the pages for now. So this one has this piece that comes out here. I don't know if you can see that. There we go. All right, so the way I did that is I have a piece of the cardstock, and I made this. Let me show you how it's going to work, and then I'll give you the measurements. So this is going to attach onto here so that it flips out. I made this a little bit smaller for this album. My original sample, it's the whole width of this, which is 5.5, I believe. But this piece is starting to get caught in the album, so I'm actually going to make it a little bit smaller when I duplicate it. All right, so this measures, there's a 1/2 inch piece to attach it. So it actually measures 5.5 by 7.25. And then I scored it at a 1/2 inch. And we're gonna put some score tape on here. And again, I like to use the 3/8 of an inch, but the 1/4 inch is fine. Don't use the 1/2 inch, even though it's a 1/2 inch mark. I find that the 1/2 inch often comes out like off the edges and you end up with a sticky mess. So I'm going to cut just these corners off so that they don't stick out. All right. I'm sorry, I got sticky stuff all over me. All right, so we're going to put this on the edge here. So we're just going to line up. It should go top to bottom exactly right. But again, it's about 1/4 inch smaller than the width of the page. So it goes like this. Okay, now in here on the inside, I have pockets here and here. And let me get this out of the way. So the bottom pocket measures 6 inches by 3.5. And then I scored at a 1/2 inch on 3 of the sides. And then we're going to use again the score tape, and we're going to go next to that score line, closer to the score line than the raw edge, on all 3 sections. Burnish the edges or the score tape. Now I just want to kind of miter those corners. So the first thing, I like to turn it to the side without the score tape so that I can actually see it. I'm just going to cut away the top corners just a little bit, just so the corners are off of there. And then I'm going to cut across the bottom, and I like to use my bigger scissors for these so I could do it all in one fell swoop. And I'm going right to where these 2 score lines intersect. And then we're going to fold it so that the score tape is on this part here. Now we're going to put this on the bottom piece of the pocket. I like to start first with the bottom. And this is why it's easier really to do it before the pages are in your album, but again, if you're trying to make it look exactly like mine, it might be too confusing to do that. So this is probably the best way to do it. All right, now we're going to take the sides off, and there we go. And then we want another pocket above that, and let me show you on my sample. This pocket here, actually, it's open. I slid it through both pieces, and then I slid these in here. So the way I did that was I made this 2 1/4 inches by 6 inches, and I scored it a 1/2 inch from both edge along the short edge. And score tape, score tape, burnish the edges, and trim those corners. And fold them in. And I take off both of these pieces at the same time, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to line this up right on top of this. You don't want it to overlap the edge of this pocket. So it just goes right flush with it on top. And it's hard to tell because it's white on white, but this piece is going to end up going on here, and this piece will end up going on here. And then we have the big long pocket. Oops, this goes on the big piece. I'm sorry, but there's a big long pocket here and then the smaller pocket here. All right, so this folds in like that. And the second page I left empty or blank. We're just going to put, you know, design paper on here. Let's see if we could do this. So the next page, this side is this one, and then this side is this part. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make the pocket here. All right, so we're going to, it's the same way as we did the pocket on the inside of here. Let me just make sure I'm doing it right here. All right, so it goes on here, right? So this one, the moon, this one here. Okay. So this again measures 6 1/4 by 3 1/2, and I scored it at a 1/2 inch on 3 of the edges, 2 short and 1 long. And we're going to put our score tape on those tabs, if you will. Burnish it good. I'm going to turn it over so I can trim these corners. With my bigger scissors, I'm going to trim these corners. And then I'm going to fold them in and use the boner on here. And then this is going to go on the bottom. So I start with that long bottom edge first. And then the sides. All right. So now the next piece we have to do is this part. So I have a piece that measures 4 1/4 by 6 1/2. I scored it at a 1/2 inch up here, and then I just rounded the corners. And we're going to put score tape on this. You don't really have to cut the corners off on this. It's just, I do it just so I am in the habit of doing it for all of the pieces. All right, now this is going to go up here so that it lifts open. So this piece is going to get attached to that, but that's kind of far away from me. So I like to flip it over and do it upside down. And you want to center it from side to side. You can get out your ruler if you want, but I just kind of like to eyeball it. And sometimes my eyeballs are crooked and I notice it. There's that motorcycle again. And sometimes I have to take it off and redo it, but that looks pretty good to me. So now that flips up. This piece also flips up. So I just took a piece that measures 3 1/4 by 8 1/2, and it gets scored right in half. And now I'm gonna put my score tape on this, but I'm not actually gonna glue it on here yet because I want to first put the design paper on there. And I do not think I have that cut. I think I missed that on mine. So we're going to come back to that. But we can go ahead and put the score tape on here now, so that way it's done. And I'm just using the 1/4 inch. I just like to go all the way across the outside edges or around the outside edges, and then I do some in the middle. Oh, and I do see I've got my paper cut for that, so maybe we will put it on. So this gets this paper. It was hiding. So we can go ahead and do that. I like to use score tape even to put my papers on. I find a lot of times that when I use just the tape runners, if you come back to it in a year, it seems like it's starting to fall apart. I don't seem to have that issue with the score tape. So even if you're just using score tape on the outside edges and then tape runner in the middle, if you have one of the big glue guns or a glue glider, for some reason that glue is a little bit stronger, so that might work better, and then you wouldn't have to use the score tape. The score tape is a little bit more time consuming to do, but I don't want this to fall apart, especially when I'm giving it as a gift. So in the long run, I think it's better to just do that. Now, if you have a hard time seeing when you're gluing this, because this tag, it's white on white, it's hard to see where your edge is. Sometimes I like to take something that has color and just set this underneath it. That way I can kind of see where my edges are. And it looks like I used a slightly different corner rounder on this. So I'm going to fix that. Let's see if this one is a little bit better. No, I think that's the one I used. I have my Crop-A-Dile corner rounder downstairs, so I'll do that later. But if you're okay with that, that's fine. That would just bug me a little bit. All right, so now we can glue this part on. And I know I said I wasn't going to decorate it yet, but I want to be able to get this piece on so I don't misplace it. So I want it to flip up that way, so make sure your fold is there. And again, you can get out a ruler if you want. Again, I just like to eyeball it. Sometimes it helps if you stand up so that you're standing right over top of it. Okay, so that's that piece. So now we have this, and then this part lifts up, and then we have this pocket here. All right. Okay, so the next page, there's no flaps or anything on these two. Then the next page on this side is where we're going to put this piece. And I put a magnet in here, and of course I did not bring the magnets up with me. So I'm going to show you how I did it though. So this piece is this here. Okay, let me just show you the measurements and how I put it together. This measures, what I did was I took a piece 4.5 inches by 10 3/4. I scored this edge. There's a 1/2 inch score mark here. So I scored it at a 1/2 inch there. And then I scored the paper all the way down, but then I trimmed this section that was here away. So it started out with just a rectangle, and I scored it at a 1/2 inch, and I also put a score mark there at 7 3/4. And again, if you need measurements, if you plan on making one of these, reach out to me and I can do that, give you those dimensions. So this is going to be the pocket. So let's go ahead and put our score tape on the pocket piece. We're going to, I already trimmed the edges here, but I'm going to trim this one. And we're going to fold these pieces in. And let's go ahead and make our pocket first. That way we know which direction to do the rest. So it just folds up. And then it's going to go into our album. We're going to fold this down. So score tape's going to go on here so it can attach to this, so it goes up and down. All right, so we're going to put score tape on this part. And again, you don't have to, for this piece, cut the corners, but I like to just be in the habit of doing it. So it's going to go on here, but again, I like to have it closer to my face so I can see what I'm doing. So I'm just flipping it upside down. I'm going to eyeball it. I got something sticky on there. That looks good. So before I decorate it, I'm going to put a magnet on here that attaches to here before we put our papers on. So in the meantime, though, we have the bottom pocket here, but now we need to do this pocket. And we're going to do this similar to how we did that front pocket. Okay, so the pocket piece measures 4 3/4 by 2.5. I scored it at a 1/2 inch on each of the 3 sides, and then you fold it in. So this is what's going to go on here, and that makes the little pocket. So we're just going to take the backing off, and I kind of tuck all the sides in, and you're just going to line it up so it goes just above the top of the other pocket. And you might just have to wiggle it a little bit. And I see I got a little fuzzy thing here, so let me get that off. And that's it. So now we have this pocket goes to there, and then this pocket is here. So we have this one here, and then the last one is just this little flap. So this just measures 3 3/4 by 4 1/4. I scored it a 1/2 inch from the one side to attach to the main page. And this goes kind of in the middle from top to bottom. All right. So at this point, it may be helpful to you to label, if you didn't already label, the front and the back, just so you don't start gluing papers on upside down. That's the front. I also usually put it inside here. This is the back. I've already glued my cover pages on and realized that it's all completely upside down. That's when undo is definitely your best friend. All right, so let's just make sure that we have the page construction correct. All right, so this one is just plain. This one has this piece here. It flips open and it has the 2 pockets, and this piece is plain. Okay, this one, this has this and the pocket. Okay. These are both just plain. This one has the magnet piece with the 2 pockets, and then the last one has this. And I'm going to show you how to do this piece also. But let me get all of my supplies together to do the papers and this pocket piece, and I'll show you how I did this piece as well, and I will come right back with that. All right, so that'll be part 3. All right, I'll be back. Thank you.